Today is the day. After suffering countless days and months, overseeing meaningless positions and commanding units that never went anywhere, Zan Hal finally got the orders he's been waiting for ever since he was granted leadership. His assignment was to take over garrison duties on a fairly populated colony of the human, and ironically named United Nations. As soon as he got such notice, he grabbed any and all documents relevant to the humans and began his preparations. The humans were hopelessly divided. Their so-called United Nations was nothing more than a symbolic organization, relying on the diplomatic goodwill of member states than exercising any real authority. True power rested in a few of the most powerful states dominating human society. Those few who had the economies to spare, carving out new territory for themselves amongst the stars. And not even to advance their race, it was purely just to gain a competitive advantage over their rivals or enemies. Antennae flickering about, all of his possessions were already packed when his escort arrived, informing him that it was time to depart. Although garrison duty wasn't frontline combat, he knew that it meant progress. No more keeping an eye on supplies for homebound units. No more prancing about, impressing the civilians with his uniform and bored soldiers. This time, he has responsibility. A world freshly occupied, whose inhabitants need to be brought in line. If he impresses his superiors with these orders, that's one step closer to actually joining the war in a truly meaningful capacity. And the only way to get their attention was to convince the defiant human population that they've already lost the war, and that it would be in their best interests to submit to the Alliance's administration. As he exited his hovercraft, looking upon the transport vessel that would take him to his charge, he spotted his sire waiting for him, Zex, the man whom he is constantly measured against. Everything he does scrutinized to see if it measures up to the decorated, experienced senior officer. "I came by as soon as I heard," Zack said as the hopeful junior approached. "So, this is it then. Your first real command, keeping an occupied world under control while the others focus their efforts on the remaining human forces. You ready?" "Always have been." Zan Hal nodded firmly. "Trust me, as soon as you hear new word about me, it'll be how the world became safe enough to settle. Cities reconstructed, industry running again, and the humans friendly towards us." Zex chuckled some in response. "You've got the attitude, but don't let that blind you. The universe is very cruel with our dreams. Always be ready to expect the worst, something you thought would never happen or have to deal with." "Understood, sir." Zan Hal nodded again. "Whatever the humans will try with my forces, we'll be ready." Zex looked about for a moment before leaning into the younger Zexa. "Consider this a personal order from your sire. Whatever happens, come back home alive." Zan Hal froze for a moment, caught off guard by that. Nonetheless, Zan Hal gave a look of confidence as he spoke. "Don't you worry, I will." "Good." Zex sighed before stepping aside. "Don't let me keep you any longer. Get out there and make the Alliance proud." "Yes, sir," Zan Hal replied, boarding the transport promptly. Z-114-3, Alliance-occupied system, approx. 500 live from the front line. Zan Hal felt his heart leap into his throat, his antennae flickering erratically. There it was, his assignment, a blue gem amidst the void. And upon the viewing panel of his seat he was given strategic information regarding the world. Its estimated loss of industry and life, current forces stationed, supply schedules, the works. Time to get to work. The first thing that came to mind was that, for this particular planet, it was the most diversely populated of the UN colonies. And reading translated documents of human media, he picked up on chronic cases of racial and cultural tensions. The humans will try to resist his authority, that's a given. This is going to be a long process. He needs to be careful in what he does. If he's not, he'll just make things that much more worse. Zan Hal believes that the crux of his woes will be the internecine conflicts that arise so frequently. If he can take care of that, pacifying the human populace will be much more straightforward. Sir, landing procedure has completed. Please depart whenever you're ready. His pilot informed him right as Zan Hal felt his body lurch at a sudden stop. Time to get started. So, what's the good news you need to tell me in person for? Zan Hal asked, leaning back in his seat. We've won, sir, his adjutant replied with beaming pride. As of 2 hours ago, local time, the United Nations has declared unconditional surrender to us. All we have left now is the Anaran Empire, though I'm getting word that they'll be far from simple to deal with. Zan Hal let out an excited huff as he processed what this meant. Already he has a head start. The official defeat of their government, symbolic as it is, will be a massive blow to the populace's morale. That means that they'll be much more docile now, knowing that they have completely lost the war. Thank you for informing me. Anything else? The adjutant looked behind him before approaching Zan Hal's desk, speaking softly. This is odd, but I just received direct orders from the Black Scales. They've told me to pass this to you as soon as you've arrived. Maintain high state of security. Assume all humans are hostile until further notice. Wah, Black Scales. Are you sure? Zan Hal asked in surprised confusion. And all of them? Every single one hostile? The Black Scales are a name rarely mentioned, yet everyone knows. Operations too dangerous and sensitive for just about anyone to perform. Nobody knows how they operate, save for the most powerful of politicians. And the only to talk to them is for them to come to you. Trust me, sir, I'm sure. The adjutant nodded darkly, his expression containing no trace of deceit, just fear. Zan Hal sighed, unsure what to make about this. Well, all right. Send word then. Oh, and while you do that, also inform 4th Company to head over to Sector Nej-4 and provide assistance to reconstruction efforts. Yes, sir. He gave off a relieved appearance as he nodded, then exited Zan Hal's office. With a pondering sigh, Zan Hal still can't seem to quite get past this development. Why are the Black Scales involved with an upcoming officer given a post to prove himself? Why does he need to treat every single human here as a potential enemy? To enforce maximum security protocol for the entire garrison and security force? Something must be going on here. But what could it be? He was jarred out of his thoughts by his very lungs being tapped, a quick second of breathlessness and the sudden boom of thunder. Shooting out of his chair, he pulled up a security panel and tried to figure out what that was. After a few swipes, he found it. Gate I-3, the northern perimeter. The stream was noisy, and he could see a crack on the protective window. But there was no mistaking it. A fireball dead center of the screen, a massive column of smoke lazily rolling upward. A massive explosion had occurred. An accident on a vehicle. Sabotage. He got his answer immediately. His panel shut off without his input. All the lights cut out. And then, although smaller, several more thudding booms sounded out, and the unmistakable sound of combat. Heart dropping out of his thorax, he dashed over to his desk and withdrew his sidearm out from its quick-reach spot. "Commander Zan Hal, sir," his adjutant barged in shouting. "We're under attack. I figured that out." He barked back, making his way to the door. "Get your weapon and stay close." "What's the status of our comms?" "Dead. I'm just getting noise ever since the power went out," the adjutant replied, rushing over to his desk and pulling out his gun. "Okay, then we round up whatever soldiers we can find and make our stand here," Zan Hal stated. "The UN has been defeated, and none of the Anarans have made it this far behind the front lines. We'll just have to hold out until reinforcements arrive to relieve us. Just stay calm and keep close to me, Jex. I'll check and see if the hard comms still work." The adjutant Jex announced, rushing to his station. Zanhal immediately began watching every entrance to the room, his weapon at the ready. And then things just got even worse. Muffled, faint, yet still audible, he could hear quick screams cut short, erratic shouting, and the final confirming evidence, a single gunshot. Jex, we've got enemies inside the building, Zanhal warned grimly. WHWH, Jex replied meekly. He's starting to panic. Quick, get everything you can and barricade the doors, now, Zanhal ordered, already grabbing one of the waiting seats. Jex stumbled about for a bit before he regained his senses, quickly joining the effort. Within at least a couple of minutes, they've managed to put up some kind of defense. The doors have been blocked off, and they've erected a quick-second fortification with what's left. Zanhal continued to watch the doors, always ready for any kind of movement. He tuned out the nervous breathing of his adjutant, his focus completely on being ready to fight. His heart jumped when he heard the clattering of the door attempting to open. He could hear muffled voices shortly after. Those must be humans. This can't be a revolt by his own men. Searching himself, he found that he still possessed his auto-translator. Anything he can get will no doubt be of immense help. He got anything to open this quickly? Hell no. We gave most of our explosive shit to those jihadists. Shit, we don't have the time. Won't be long before the others realize what's going on. I got an idea, get back. Zanhal's entire body surged when he heard the metallic sound of a gun being readied. Jex, down! Chaos ensued. The human on the other side was riddling them with a storm of lead, dust filling the air and splinters of all kinds violently launched around. The harsh cracks of the metal rounds flying over him. All he could do right now is pray that he survives this. That's all he can do. He can't move. There's no better cover around. He fought to suppress his instinct to flinch each time a splinter hit his body. After an agonizing eternity, it finally ended. Good shit, that had to get him. We can't assume, dude. We need to make sure he's dead. Oh, so we'll just spend the night kicking the door down then? How are we gonna get in there? Hey, shut it. Orders coming in. Okay, shit. We got baddies coming, but Brass has a plan. Just stay here and sit tight until further notice. Huh, well. Then, in that case, who gets to kick it down first? Jex. This is bad, Zanhal stammered, struggling to keep himself together. They're organized and well-equipped. Those soldiers better break through and help us, or I don't think we'll make it. Zanhal expected some kind of response, but he received none. In fact, now that he focused on it, he can't hear breathing anymore. With every piece of his innards dropping to the floor, he ever so slowly looked to check on Jex. He was dead. Head broken apart, an eye dangling below his mandible, and his skull, though broken apart, lies empty. Blood pooling in terrifying volume on the floor below. Zanhal's vision went white. I don't care what you have to do, we're moving now, Company Officer Niza shouted. As soon as he heard from the other companies that they too lost contact with base, he knew something was wrong. What is a Retreeman muttered weakly. What is it? Neza replied with a scowl. Humans they're They're all going away. Look. The soldier pointed. Neza followed and saw what he meant. The humans, the tattered remnants of a once independent race, are moving en masse away from them, some of them even running. At first he thought this was suspicious, but after looking at the scene of his men scrambling to return to their transports after regrouping with their squads, he decided that the humans realized something was happening and wanted no part in it. Ignore them. They know we're not in the mood for games. Neza sighed. Get back with your group. We need to get back to base right now. Yes, sir. The soldier immediately saluted and then rushed off. Poom Neza stopped in his tracks. He thought he heard the sound of a bomber but stood still to confirm. Poom. "Bombs incoming!" Nazer screamed at the top of his lungs. And right on cue, the whistling grew rapidly. He made a mad dash to the nearest building and dived in. Just as he landed, he felt a massive hammer smash his back, the very ground beneath him rumbling, followed by the pattering of small debris and large dust hitting his back. Crawling like a madman, he got as deep into the building as he could before looking outside. It was a morbid show of firepower. Bombs hitting the ground, massive columns of dust, accentuated by the flickering of embers and faint fireballs, danced and peppered the street his company was on. Checking his weapon, he readied himself for what must be inbound combat. On and on it went for ages before it finally ended. He waited for an agonizing period of time before he found the courage to get outside. "Everyone give me status," Nazer demanded over his group link. "You thought I think I'm okay," the first voice spoke. "I've got multiple men down. I think I'm the only one left." A second frantic voice shouted, "Movement!" the third voice screamed. Scrambling, Nazer rested his weapon against the edge of the wall, scanning the area before he heard something whirring. A harsh, obnoxious buzzing sound. Looking around, he finally found the source and practically shit himself when he realized what he was looking at. A flying quadrotor machine, a drone, he heard the humans say. And mounted underneath were two obvious guns. And it already positioned itself for an attack run. Knowing he won't get a shot off, he retreated back into his previous spot when he escaped from the bombing mission. Just in time to hear the drone fire at him, tiny plumes of dust peppering his steps. Seeing a counter, he dived over and took cover behind it. He scrunched himself as the drone angled itself to attack him directly. The wall in front of him began to morph, spitting out columns of dust at him and losing its original shape from the unrelenting gunfire. He had no way of knowing how much ammo it had. He had to do something. Raising his weapon over him, he blind-fired at the drone, praying he would hit, moving it around in all different motions. He finally got his luck, seeing how the plumes of impact suddenly veer off, and the clattering of the drone sounding off soon after. Wasting no time, he jumped over the counter and, grabbing the heaviest object he could find, started to smash the drone. He didn't stop until it was a drone no more. Panting and heaving, he cautiously advanced to the entrance of the building he was in, and once again scanned the environment. He saw and heard other drones attacking the scattered soldiers of his company. After a quick check, he ran, his legs pumping as hard as they could, across the exposed street. Sliding into cover, he shot down the first drone he saw. It was just after he vaulted over his cover that he heard a fierce, bone-chilling roar. "Allahu Akbar!" Before he could react, his ear tunnels popped and he was launched backwards, his vision nothing but grey and orange, all breath leaving his chest. Completely stunned, his mind numb, he stared at the lying, deceiving sky for what felt like an eternity before he finally found the strength to get back up. The original site of the first unit he tried to save was just a massive cloud of dust. Faintly, he could see pieces of his men along the windows. His body surged when he heard that roar again, muffled from the ringing, "Allahu Akbar!" Turning around instantly, he saw a human dressed in all black. His chest was wired in bombs, his arms outstretched above his head, and in one of his hands was what must be the detonator. Letting out the most terrified scream he ever made, he unloaded his entire magazine into the mad human. With a wheeze, the human crashed hard into the ground, his ebbing groan announcing his death. And still Nazer continued to fire at him, his gun clicking each time he did, his chest heaving hard continuously on the edge of hyperventilating. He was knocked out of his terror when a bullet missed him, the air cracking next to his severely damaged ear. Scrambling like a mad dog on his fours, he took cover from, by instinct, where he thought the bullet originated from. He frantically reloaded his weapon and peeked over the edge. Humans, moving like a well-trained squad. They were wearing casual clothing, just like the civilians he saw while stationed here, except these ones had a layer of military gear on top of them, with weapons he instantly recognized as UN firearms. "There, by the old fountain," one of them shouted. "Fuck 'em up," another barked. "John, suppressing fire now." That scream of pure, wrathful defiance accompanied the heavy repeater unleashed. Neza had no choice but to get down, the sheer volume of dust and debris not letting him get any good shot off. "This is 5th Company Officer Neza. We need help, now." Neza screamed bloody murder into his comms. "Under heavy attack by human rebels, heavy casualties. They're using suicide bombers. Repeat, suicide bombers." "3rd Company, we need help more," a voice screamed back. "Human rebels launched poison bombs at us. My men are on the ground having seizures. They're dying by the second." Neza screamed out when he was pulled away. The humans got him. Struggled as he did, one of them knocked him out with the hard smack of the butt of his machine gun.